Right then, folks, please, before you judge me and desert me in your droves, I know you don't like Boris Johnson, neither do I. This isn't me defending him at all. But please, just step back, look at what the mainstream media are doing, and look at what social media are saying, especially Twitter. And bearing in mind that mainstream media in this country and Twitter and social media as a whole are completely anti-conservative and definitely anti-Boris. So there is a anti-Boris, anti-conservative bias going on here. Now the guy is a complete and utter fuck-up, not only because of his stupid weird behaviour as a clown. I am tired of his upper-class, stuttering Hugh Grant character antics. He hasn't acted upon illegal immigration across the channel as I'd have wished, and his idiotic green policies, which have, by the way, come from his wife, would hit the low earners in this country the hardest. Poor people simply can't afford to go green. And as for his idiotic plague passport idea, that was just stupid because they're discriminatory. And it would be just like throwing a hand grenade at the economy. And I'm so glad that idea was kicked into touch by Parliament. They got something right at least. So yeah, the guy isn't perfect. He is behaving less like a Tory and more like a socialist by the day. But in all honesty, who the hell can we have to replace him? Both the Labour and Lib Dem parties are fanatical lockdown enthusiasts. These people would also make having the jab mandatory, and they would implement the sort of COVID tyranny that you see in New Zealand, Australia and bits of Europe. Boris Johnson hasn't implemented that. Yeah, okay, he brought in the plague passport bill. It didn't pass, but he didn't appeal it. Now, can you imagine Boris could well be like the idiot Mark Drakeford in Wales and wee Jimmy Cranky Nicola Sturgeon up in Scotland? England could be sharing an economy-destroying lockdown that these two other countries have, but we don't. We're lucky. And as for the alcoholic parties in Downing Street while the nation was in lockdown, yes, the buck does stop with him. And trying to get other members of staff to resign to save his career is, quite frankly, disgusting. The guy literally just cannot do anything right at the moment. But going back to the mainstream media, they are literally frothing at the mouth at this guy. They're not reporting the news, they're giving their opinions, and their opinion is that this democratically elected Prime Minister should be removed. Now, in my opinion, that's not how the mainstream media should behave. They should be reporting on stories. The mainstream media in this country should not be influencing or telling the public who we should have to govern us as our leader. Now look at these tweets, for example, by Laura Kunsberg. Now see if you can notice anything about these tweets. Here's what she wrote. Another Tory MP told me that in the tea room the PM told him and colleagues it's not his fault and he's bravely taking the blame for others. Caused much consternation among colleagues, given that he'd just given a public apology. And then she followed up with this. Another Tory MP has just been in touch to say an ally of the PM seems to be going round trying to find out who said this and say it didn't happen. Sign of the level of trust in Tory party right now, so very, very febrile. Now, did you notice Laura Kunsberg didn't name any names? It was basically a mate of a mate told me this. Now, what level of journalism is this? Or is this a journalist just trying to spread rumours? I think it's the latter, don't you? And as for the opposition Labour Party, all having a go at Boris Johnson for breaking lockdown rules. Now this is a tweet by Zara Sultana, she's a Labour MP, and this tweet was written during the height of the lockdown in 2020. Now bearing in mind, lockdown rules meant people had to stay in, no mixing, no gathering. However, here she is, encouraging people to go to the Black Lives Matter riot that weekend. There is nothing in this tweet telling people to obey lockdown rules and not go to the middle of London to join thousands of other rioters to cause trouble, which they did. And these people have the front to criticise the Tories and Boris Johnson at this very moment. I think that's very sickening. Quite frankly, after the past couple of years, especially the Brexit debacle, where our democratically elected representatives tried everything in their power to stop Brexit. And then you've got the expenses scandal and everything else on top that these people are doing right now. I don't believe that Parliament is representing the people. I think Parliament and the House of Lords needs reforming root and stem. And I think Her Majesty the Queen should step in and dissolve Parliament. It's high time she did something with those powers she has. There simply isn't a system here to protect the public from Parliament and hold them to account. You see, when these people fuck up, they don't get the sack, they just get moved on to another job, and then blaming each other for something they are very much guilty of themselves. I think it's time we had a direct democracy, because the system we have at the moment is an indirect democracy, and it's not working. For example, a constituency that is 100% Brexit voting can elect someone to represent them at an election. Yet that person, that new MP to represent them, could well be a Remainer. They don't have to do a thing their constituency asks them to do. And that system simply doesn't work. MPs don't represent the people, they very much represent themselves, and that's the problem. And you have a head of state monarch who simply won't use her powers to do something about it. The whole system is rotten to the core. So who is there to replace Boris Johnson? There is absolutely no one, because everyone else would be a hardline lockdown enthusiast. All the MPs have said so. They are all for plague passports, mandatory jabs, which would lead to economic ruin. Think about it, folks. Thank your lucky stars Boris isn't like Mark Drakeford and Nicola Sturgeon. But worryingly, if polls are to be believed, then the Conservatives could well lose the next general election, and Labour could lead a hung parliament while being propped up by the SNP. Can you imagine such a thing happening? I can't. It would destroy this country of ours. So here's my opinion, folks, and I know it's unpopular, but just think about it. Step back, watch what's happening. Boris is the best of a bad bunch. They're all bad. And just look at the political landscape, how it's changing, who's propping who, alliances, and think good and hard who the hell you're going to vote for at the next election. And it will be completely useless me suggesting that the little parties, the little conservative, right-wing, patriotic parties come together. Parties such as UKIP for Britain, Reform Party UK, the Reclaim Party, the English Democrats, and all the rest of them to come together, because they won't. They're at war with each other. And a vote for one of these little parties is completely pointless. It's a wasted vote. I mean, it would be great if they did come together and challenge the two-party system we have. But I don't think they ever will. And it's a fact that the majority of citizens here in England, the UK, will either vote Conservative or Labour. It's a fact. A sad fact, but a fact nonetheless. Even if no party represents you, do you really want a Labour government propped up by Nicola Sturgeon's SNP? Think on that. Anyway, that's my video. I can imagine a lot of you have unsubscribed because I kind of stuck up for Boris Johnson, but I didn't. All I'm telling you is there's no alternative. He's the best of a bad bunch. And I hope you don't think I'm looking at this blindly, and that I have given you the broader picture. And that's that. So please comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think. And until my next video, Roger Trout.